We're going live. We're going live. We're going live. Hey, Pirates, it's Tuesday, and we're going to have a show today. And I just wanted to welcome you and hope that you're having a fabulous day, a great start of the week. This is, we're wrapping up January already. I can't believe it's already 2022 and January. And I just wish things are going. I just look forward to this year. I look forward to a lot of great things taking place. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about tech, startups, a few things around that idea, and then also how we can actually graduate to the next level as it relates to technology and some of the things that we're dealing with around us. Because, why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we? So let's jump into it. All right, let's go. Welcome to the Pirate Broadcast, where we interview interesting people doing interesting things, where you can expand your connections, your community. Kindness is cool and smiles are free. And let's get this party started. Welcome to the party, Oshri. How you doing?
I am doing fantastic. And yourself?
I can't imagine a better way to start the day than having a phenomenal conversation with somebody doing something interesting. And as a CTO, and we'll get into that in a little bit, and somebody that's been in technology for more than a few years, I'm just fascinated by the technology and how it's evolving and where it's going. So I want to kind of dive into that. But first and foremost, what is the temperature in your neck of the woods?
Minus 16 Celsius. It is. It's nice for a walk. We can walk outside. There's no wind. As long as there's no wind, you're fine. You're in the clear. You can walk outside for hours.
But you're in Montreal, Canada, and I just love my Canadian friends. So thank you so much for joining us today in the cold. And for those that may not know you yet, all the pirates, come on in and join us. But kind of give us a backstory on what your focus is, because tech and technology is kind of, you started coding when you were like 15 or something like that. 13, I don't know what it was.
Yeah, something like that. So I'm one of those guys that started coding basically as soon as I got a computer. One of the first things that I got, my father got me a computer. Okay, the second thing, I was 13 years old. The first thing was something else. But the second thing that I did was programming, right?
Yeah. And
I've been coding ever since. Fact of the matter, I didn't even go to school for coding, right?
Wow.
By the time I turned 18, I already had 5 years building software, building websites for people. And at the time, it was very rudimentary, but still, it was a skill that most people did not have and had to go to university for, and so on and so forth. But what I did realize suddenly is that jobs weren't hiring people without a degree, because at the time, you needed a degree. Otherwise, they didn't even talk to you. Nowadays, when I hire developers, I don't even look at their educational background. It's actually irrelevant for me, completely and utterly irrelevant. I don't look at whether they did university. I take a look at what they've done. What have they achieved, right? Because software development is a skill that is acquired over many, many years. There are foundational elements that you need to know, right? How computers work, how systems work, memory, CPU, network, and so on. Those can be acquired within a couple of months, let's be honest, right? Or a year in university tops. So when I entered into the working world, I ended up just doing a quick degree at a vocational college. Say, hey, look at that. I have a degree. It cost me $15,000. Hire me now. And I got hired.
Yeah. All of a sudden.
I don't even know where this degree is. I never even got it. But I'm like, I was able to put it on my resume. I should have lied. Frankly, honestly, I should have lied for $15,000. I finished paying it off a couple of years ago.
Oh, man. Yeah. But the thing that is really evolving, I think, because it was so new when you started, people needed evidence because there wasn't a lot of background of projects that could, you could add to that. So it was like, okay, evidence.
Yeah.
And now you have a body of work that you can actually show. You have a portfolio, just like an artist or a musician or, somebody that's in the creative space, because code is incredibly creative. And, there's some rules that have to be followed. However, some of the things that you do. I've heard the term code is poetry, right? And it's really fascinating to me that a lot of code is you know it's little snippets of code you can use together to actually create some results. And so having a portfolio of things that you've already created kind of just builds on the next thing. Is that kind of way you look at it, or is it fresh?
That is exactly that's exactly how a developer evolves through organizations. You learn your job in the field. If I have a new grad, whether it's from a boot camp or from university, they basically know nothing. They don't know how to write code. They know academically, they know the science behind it, but they don't know the art behind it. And that's the important thing here.
Yeah.
The science doesn't really change. For the most part, the more it changes, the more it stays the same, right? From architectural patterns through to microservices and so on and so forth. It's all basically the same, how you structure a system. But how you write it and the different languages afford you a different way of expressing your art. I know it sounds very, very floofy, very artistic, but it really is. That's why we have so many different programming languages. We have the strict languages, right? And they're designed for high CPU and high processing power. We've got the generalist languages like Python, where you can write and it almost feels like you're reading a document, a beautiful document, right? And they're all good, and they're also all bad at the same time because it depends on what you use them for. So if you don't use the right one, it's like using a screwdriver on a nail. It's kind of gonna work, but you're gonna work harder.
Yeah. So do you have any preferences, or is there let me ask a better question. What languages are emerging to be more popular? Because like a few years ago it was Ruby on Rails, and people went through different things, and PHP, and there's these kind of it seems like there's evolutions of different languages that crop up and become popular.
So it's interesting. The popularity of programming languages is kind of a fake market almost, because the popularity of these programming languages is based on media and how often they're talked about. So PHP, for example, one of the most popular languages in the world. I think it powers something like 75% of websites of the internet. This is massive, right? It's existed forever. There are millions and millions of developers, legacy developers, but very few new developers that are going into PHP, right? But still is an unbelievably powerful language for building your websites, for building systems and whatnot. But that's just that, websites, right? Then you've got Python, you've got Golang, which is absolutely beautiful and infuriating at the same time. Like literally at the exact same time. I write some Golang, I'm like, this is the most beautiful and annoying language in the world. Oh. But it's also one of the languages you can pick up the quickest. I picked it up in about 2 hours, and I was writing production grade code in about 2 hours. Granted, I have 20 years of experience writing other languages, so it kind of flows in, right? It's just syntax at that point. But you've got Python, which is very, very popular generalist language, has seen a huge resurgence in data science, very, very popular in data science because it's so easy to express, it's so easy to write, and so easy to run. Doesn't require much. Then you've got Golang, which is Google's answer to C++. Also, absolutely beautiful language. They completely changed the game on how software development is written. They've made away with object-oriented programming, almost made away with it, right? Just completely different. You've got Rust that is making some waves now for sure, and there'll be definitely many more. But the underdog that is rising quickly, and people are not paying attention to it very much unless they're in the know, is Microsoft's .NET framework. Not, Microsoft has never been, Microsoft has never been associated with sexy code.
No.
But since their new CEO came into play, he's like, yeah, we have to embrace Linux now. Yeah. I was a .NET developer for 20 years, right?
Uh-huh.
At least for 20 years. Then I got onto a Mac and I'm developing in Linux entirely, and I dropped Microsoft almost overnight because I prefer the Linux environment, because that's how we're coding these days,
Yeah.
right? For the most part, containerization and so on and so forth. And Microsoft has now adopted it big time. And they're listening, they have their ear close to the ground, and they're building they're evolving their language and their framework as a product. They're paying attention to the market. And this thing evolves every 6 months. There's new syntactic sugar that comes into play that makes it easier and cleaner and faster to write code. It's just unbelievable. I can't wait to get back into it. I just need a project to get back into it.
Yeah.
Right? But it's a beautiful thing.
That's fascinating. Years ago, I was a NT administrator. I was IT directors for running networks, and Microsoft was not the sexy kid on the block.
Yeah.
But hey, Dimitri's in the room. Thank you so much for being here. Good morning. He says, I love tech. KD, 48 degrees in Sugarland, southwest of Houston. Yes. Elise is here, South Africa. Good morning, Russ. Howard Kaufman asked a question. This is a great Howard, how you doing? I hope you're well today. What's the biggest challenge with software development today?
Oh my.
That's a great question. That's a wide open question.
That is a wide open question. Can we extend the podcast to about 3
I was going to say we could talk a few hours.
Meditate over this one. So I find one of the biggest ones is in recruitment of software developers. That's one of the biggest challenges. Software development is an art, right? When you hire an artist, do you evaluate the work that they've done, or how they use a brush, or their brush stroke, or the expertise of how they're holding the brush, right? So when traditional companies, not the newer age startups, not the ones that follow from, just the new age startups, right? What they're doing is they're trying to measure how a developer holds said brush stroke and how they're doing it, even though the job itself will never require a brush stroke to begin with. Those are the coding tests, the very much hated, very much annoying coding exams. And I do some technical recruiting. I speak to candidates, and they will refuse to talk to me if I will put them through a coding test. I will refuse an interview if I have to do a coding test. And I've refused it for the last 15 years. Don't even talk to me about it. But there are ways of doing it properly, right? There are ways of doing it properly. A technical conversation will tell you a lot more about how the programmer, the software developer, thinks, how they express their creativity, how they problem solve. A 15-minute conversation with a really good interviewer who knows how to guide the conversation will tell you a lot more than 30 hours of tests, right? And it's also not fair to the developers, right? Because
it's how they think, isn't it? I mean, you kind of have to see how they solve problems and how they kind of work through, their thought process. I would imagine that would be a key component of an interview.
This is, I like to say that software development is art and science in perfect equilibrium. It's in perfect equilibrium. You need to know the science, yes, but what's scientifically makes sense to write in code makes no bloody sense to write from the art perspective.
Yeah,
because you won't understand what the heck you just wrote, right? How you write the code, that's the art part. The way the language allows you to express it. And so when hiring people, this is what you need to be evaluating. Now, the second challenge is retaining them. Oh boy, that's the hard part. You want to retain
because everybody's recruiting them.
One thing is getting them into the door. The second one is keeping them with you, right? And that's where culture comes into place. Learning, it's a very difficult thing because we're a weird bunch. We like to learn a lot. We get bored very quickly, right? But we also like really, really good and interesting work all the time. Not all the time, because listen, a job is a job. Sometimes you have to dig You have to dig a trench, and you have to do it, and that's it. And this is what needs to be done. But
Yeah.
retention is a huge aspect. So, and especially in the face of this economy where you've got developers being offered straight out of school $100,000. It took me 15 years to get to $100,000 a year. Now I'm talking to people. I'm like, but you have 4 years of experience. We're still wearing diapers. What's going on here? What do you mean? You know? But yeah, this is the market. People need
Yeah.
so many more developers now, and this fictitious assumption that they don't exist. Like they're hard to find.
Yeah.
They're just hard to find because your recruitment criteria are absolutely ridiculous.
Do you see it evolving? Because I've noticed a little bit in the space that the developers are segmenting over into specialties like the back end, front end, UX, different aspects of the problem solving process. So I would imagine if you came up with an amazing team of 3 or 4 developers, you could do some incredible outcomes with software and solve a lot of problems. But it'd have to be a really tight knit team. Is that assumption like crazy, or is it in line?
It could work. I mean, for startups especially, I advise a lot of startups, and I work with them a lot as a fractional CTO. This is what I do.
Right.
They can't afford a CTO, so they hire me on a part-time basis, and I advise them and I help them build their team and run their team and so on and so on, build a technical organization. When I advise startups, I tell them you start with generalists. Hire a whole bunch of generalists, right? Handyman. Not to denigrate software developers or handyman for that matter, but yes, they can do a little bit of everything. Are they experts in anything? Maybe they're an expert in 1 or 2 things, but they can do everything.
Yeah.
Then you scale with specialists. Now that you've got your product and it's built, now you need the UI expert. Now you need the mobile app expert. Now you need the DevOps person. Now you need all of these individuals that are experts in their field that complement the rest of the generalists. Because if you have too many specialists, then you don't actually have enough work for all of them, right?
True.
So that's the thing. And this is one of the issues that startups have. They try to hire the CTO that is the expert in everything, which is impossible because you can't be an expert in everything, right?
Yeah.
But we can get into that later on. But the CTO in a startup is a thing that actually annoys me quite a bit. And I'm a CTO for a startup, right?
The dilemma, the never-ending dilemma, huh?
It's a dilemma because startups are hiring a CTO, and I tell them, guys, your first year you need one kind of CTO, the second year you need another one, the third year you need a completely different one. First is the programmer, then it's the manager, then it's the leader. Yeah. What are the chances that this one individual that you are hiring is all 3? It happens. I know many of them, but I can count them on my hand, right? That's the fact. And unfortunately, what also happens is they get a ton of equity. They own a portion of your company, but they don't end up staying past a year to 2 years because they can't grow with it. But some do, of course. And those are the ones that you hear about that end up cashing out at Google, right?
Right. It's interesting. The other side of the equation is the no code programming. There's some platforms out there. I think it's Bubble is one. The idea that people like mere mortals like myself could actually create an app that might function kind of for a mock-up and doing some of these first iterations. Is that coming more frequently, or is that on the landscape a little more frequently, or is that just kind of like a flash in the pan and it's going to go away?
Oh, it's definitely not a flash in the pan, and it's definitely not going away. That's for sure, right? Software development, we have engineers. Engineers like to build. They like to solve problems with their hands. However, the experienced technologist knows that there's a big difference between technology and engineering. Engineering is not technology, but technology is portion of engineering. It's kind of a weird way of looking at it, right?
Yeah.
And when I talk to startups, a lot of them have an engineering culture. They have the CTO that's an engineer, thinks in engineering terms. They don't think in business terms many of the times. And things that they should have bought, they build. And they waste a lot of money, a lot of time on those things. So I advise a lot of people, buy. Develop only where you innovate. That's where you invest your money in innovation, right? What is making your startup very, very special?
Right.
Otherwise, you have a website, don't build a website custom, just put in a WordPress site. What are you doing? Don't mess around. Don't waste time. Just
Get
do
it up, get it in place, right?
Get it in place. You can always change it later on, right? You can always change it. So no code has a lot of place. However, it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
And no code and commercial off-the-shelf software, COTS as it's called.
Sure.
It's a double-edged sword. What's easy is easy. What's hard is impossible. Now, you have to evaluate when you're going to get to impossible. Is it in a year or is it in 5 years? If it's in a year, it might be the wrong software for you. If it's in 5 years, go for it. Knock yourself out. Build your business. First make money, then worry about it, right? I like to say software development, product performance, writing code, and all of that is a rich man's problem, right? Once you're making money, now you can start investing in it. Just start making money. Yeah. Not for all startups. Some startups are engineering focused. They have to be because they're building something that doesn't exist. So they have to.
They have to start for. Dimitri says low code, no code citizen developers are the future of non-technical people.
I agree.
I can't disagree with that. So
my kids are learning coding in school right now, right? I'm teaching my 8-year-old Python, right, to run on a Raspberry Pi. He's not listening, but eventually he'll get it.
That's another innovation that's very creative, Raspberry Pi. I mean, that whole segment of business is really expanded.
It's a beautiful organization. Absolutely beautiful. I've got a few of them hanging around somewhere. I built an arcade with it. I built a whole bunch of things. It ran my hydroponic system. So it's kind of fun.
Let's get into that. You're growing food indoors. I just love that. In fact, later today I have a call with somebody that's he's plant-based journey. He's doing a show with plant-based, and he's looking at being vegan, going full vegan or raw food, or looking at all these alternatives. And he's up in Toronto, so growing food year round is kind of a tricky situation, but you're growing food indoors. So let's kind of dive into that. I would really love to learn more.
So hydroponics has a really bad rep, or at least it had a bad rap for a while, right? Rap. Anyways, because it was associated with the cannabis industry. Now that it's legal everywhere, everyone's cool with it.
It's an innovative way to grow plants, I can tell you.
It is. It's but it's existed forever. Hydroponics has existed in the Babylon times, right? It's existed forever. It's just
not a new thing.
Really widely used. So yes, I grow mostly greens, kale, lettuce, bok choy is one of my favorites. And we go into the garage and we just go snip a couple of leaves from everything, and then the rest grows again, and we keep going.
Yeah.
And you maintain it basically about once a week. You go in, you check some pH, you take your TDS, and that's it. And adjust ever so slightly, and it grows so rapidly.
Wow.
But it's a headache sometimes because it's a job, right? You have to sometimes spend. If I had, for example, an infestation of a bug, and I had to destroy everything and clean every piece of equipment with chlorine almost to destroy everything off. But it does happen. Yeah. But the one thing that's really interesting, and I push a lot of people to try hydroponics, not for the growing the food aspect, but to get respect for nature. Because you have to replicate nature. You have to replicate the sun, temperature, pH, the soil. The amount of things that the soil just does for you for free by just putting a seed in, you cannot just do with hydroponics. You have to add chemicals, adjust pH. We're talking about, taking half a milliliter of pH down to go in and reduce the acidity because because it has to be around 5.7 and 5.8 to grow optimally, right?
Yeah.
You have room to maneuver, but still. But when you do that, you realize then all you need to do is go outside, put a seed in the ground, maybe some compost, and then let nature do its thing
Yeah.
on autopilot is unbelievable. You get so much respect for nature this way.
Yeah.
And my kids are loving it. My kids are help me maintain it, and they realize this as well. The amount of work we have to put into growing food indoors
Yeah.
versus just planting a seed outside.
The other thing that I see popping up a little bit more frequently is vertical gardens, where they're doing gardens on walls and they're doing, freestanding vertical gardens. And even though it's not hydroponics, it's still a little sensitive in the way you prepare the soil, how you plant, and the position and all of those things that allow you. But there's nothing better than having a garden where you can actually just go out and, cut some greens and, make up a salad. And, it's just phenomenal.
We have a small garden in our backyard, 2 3x10s, and we grow about 300 units of garlic a year.
Wow.
So, and it takes 8 months to grow garlic, by the way. So next time you're at the grocery store and you complain about garlic being expensive, it should be expensive. Food should be expensive. If it's too cheap, ask yourself why. Because if garlic takes 8 months to grow, that's quite something. That's a long, because it has to go over winter. It has to go through winter.
I used to grow heirloom potatoes.
Ooh, those are nice.
There's a lot more variety of potatoes than you ever see in the grocery store.
I asked a Peruvian friend to get me potatoes from Peru, and he said I could do that, but then I'd be arrested because it's illegal. I'm like, oh, okay, well, all right. some things you can't get, right? Some things you can't get. I think there's a famous story of a person who smuggled the peel of a potato. Is it from Scotland or from wherever they make whiskey?
Oh,
right? I don't remember exactly, or bourbon. I don't remember exactly what, and spent years trying to get seeds growing out of it. Not years, but with specialists trying to get roots to grow out of it and actually cultivate it. And now is making this brand of alcohol in the United States much faster than everybody else because he managed to get that cultivar, that genome, I guess.
Oh wow,
yeah.
It's a fascinating industry. I'd love to keep in touch and figure it out. Alex says, morning from Ohio. She says, very true about indoor gardening, Tower Indoor Gardens. I love it. I just really, I find it fascinating. And I have to believe that, going out and picking some greens from your plants is kind of it's almost like a Zen movement from coding in the tech space, and kind of a relaxation way. A way to unwind a little bit. Is that true, or is that
very much? I want to get into farming, but not as a livelihood, because I'm told it's very, very difficult lifestyle.
It is very
unfortunately, difficult. Our farmers really should be the most highly paid. To be honest, but they are not, and boggles the mind, right? Because something doesn't make any sense. But I would love to have a hobby garden, a couple of acres. And be able to just sustain myself half day programming, half day maintaining my gardens.
That would be awesome.
Myself, my family.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you stopping by today and sharing these things. How do people track you down? I know you're on LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn entirely. People can find me on my website, oshricohen.me.
Okay.
Right. Exactly my first name and last name .me. It's my business website.
Perfect.
That's it.
And who's a good introduction for you if I run into somebody with projects or a startup?
Somebody who is thinking of launching a startup. Definitely, I can save them a couple of $100,000 and a lot of hair.
You can see I've had a few startups.
Just a couple, right? It's the beard. You're more of a Linux guy.
Yeah, I'm more of a Linux guy.
So anyone who's launching a startup, but also anyone who's having trouble with their software, right? And they don't know what's going on. So I like to say I'm a technology diagnostician. Okay. There's a lot of things that could go wrong with your software, And a lot of people tend to blame the developers, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's a lot of times the technical organization as a whole that is not functioning correctly, like your body. If you have a problem with your liver, it's not your liver specifically that's the problem. It's probably what you're eating. But if you just the liver, you're just killing the septum. So
don't look at the symptom.
I take a look at that.
Yeah, don't look at the symptom. Look at the source, right?
That's it. And it takes a little bit of time to find, but I do that for quite a few people.
Alex asks a question. How early can kids get into coding?
How early they can get into coding? As soon as they can read. As soon as they can read. It's actually very, very simple. And what I do with my kids, I don't do any of these Minecraft games for coding and whatnot. I help him do his math using Python. That's it. Just do your math, writing some code to do your math. Right? So we wrote a multiplications table and an additions table in Python with like 5 lines of code. And he feels like he's a superhero because he can do that. He feels like he's cheating. And I don't care if he remembers the actual math. The fact that he knows that and he's thinking in an object-oriented fashion, right?
Yeah.
I like to say, he thinks he's able to objectify things, but just code. That's it. Right?
Yeah. There's a difference between learning how to learn and learning how to memorize, right?
School is all about learning how to memorize for the most part, but I'd rather teach them how to learn.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Well, thank you so much for being here. And Pirates, always, always, always know that, this is what we do. We share interesting people doing interesting things because kindness is cool and smiles are free. And we want you to enjoy your day. See you later. Bye. Thank you for joining the Pirate Broadcast. If you found this content valuable, please like, comment, and share it across your social media channels. I would love the opportunity to help others grow in their business. The Pirate Syndicate is a platform where you show up, we produce the show. It's that easy. If you want to be seen, be heard, and be talked about, join the Pirate Syndicate today.